when you're writing your first novel, one of the reasons it can be so difficult to motivate yourself is because it's your first novel. So you don't have a publisher. I mean, some first time authors have a publisher, but generally speaking, if you're just an amateur, you don't have a publisher yet. So you don't really have anyone expecting anything of you. The only person who is involved with the book is you, and you're doing it for you. So it can be difficult when there's no one expecting anything and there isn't a sense of urgency or importance behind it. I remember when I was in university talking to one of my lecturers about deadlines, and I said to him, I'm not entirely sure what the conversation was about at the time. I think we must have been talking about an assignment that was uh, coming over the horizon. And I said to him that I was finding it difficult to motivate myself to get started on the assignment because we didn't yet have the deadline. And he completely understood that. He said that writers need deadlines, and it's true. Without deadlines, we sort of enter a kind of paralysis because if there isn't a deadline, why bother? It's basically homework. It's something that you have to do on your own, practically in isolation, and there's a lot of research involved, there's a lot of planning involved, there's a lot of rewriting involved. It's basically doing a big assignment piece. It's like homework. And if you don't have a deadline, why would you do that? Writing, it can be fulfilling, it can be a rewarding experience. It can be like meditating, sure. It's a way of escaping from this world, which is becoming increasingly bleak, but if you don't have a deadline, at least this is just what I've found, that if I don't have a deadline, I just find it difficult to really make myself get on with it. Because without a deadline, it's like the book only exists in theory. Yeah, I'm gonna become an author, kinda. This book I'm writing, kinda. It's something that really I'm just doing without a particular end game in mind. It's more like a long-term hobby, something I don't need to necessarily complete because there's no expectation that I do. Even though if I don't complete it, it's never going to happen. So it's that those two things are quite good at fighting against each other. And I bring this up because I think I may finally have a deadline. Now, I do not have a publisher for this yet. Honestly, I don't think I'm going to think about that until once I've finished it. I don't see the point of spending all that mental energy thinking about the publisher when I can spend as much time as I need once the book is done on that kind of thing. So it's got nothing to do with me finding a publisher or anything. It's that one of the things that is really important for a writer to consider, one of the big questions they have to answer is one, when is this story happening? And two, why is that when it's happening? In other words, why is this story happening now? Why has it not already happened? Would it not make sense for it to happen later? That kind of thing. And this is all part of the world building that I have been doing. I've been trying to, I mean, like 90% of writing is just problem solving and answering the logistical questions, giving yourself an increasingly specific framework to fill in. And then it becomes much easier, in my case, anyway. If I, because then it's like I'm sort of, there's the writer and then there's the editor. And if I can be the editor, giving myself the assignment and giving myself a list of specific things to do, I, as the writer, just find it much easier to fill all of that in rather than just coming up with anything. Um, so a big part of that for me was figuring out a lot of questions like, okay, how old is my main character? Because they're supposed to be kind of a young person. it wouldn't really make sense for the story to be about someone older. In a way, it's an origin story. It's not a superhero story, but in a way, it's this character's origin. It's a kind of coming of age thing. So I knew they needed to be fairly young, but they also needed to have enough experience at what they do. It's kind of like writing a young Bond novel. You know, you would expect a young Bond to not be the same age as the Bond in the movies, but you need him to at least have enough experience at what he's doing for the story to be interesting. Unless you want to start like right at the beginning, maybe. But if you want to do like he's already been about for a few years, and he's early in his career, well, you need to figure out how old he is specifically, and that was kind of the same thing for me. But that also meant I had to figure out, okay, when were they born? Like, what specifically was their birthday, including the year? And for me, that is something I need to know. Like, there are certain actors who they just go on whatever's in the script. They'll just look at the script and they'll just go entirely on that, and they'll leave all of that to the writer. Then there are other actors who need to basically understand everything about their character. You know, where did they grow up? What job did their parents do? What do they have for breakfast in the morning? That kind of thing, because it helps their own process. I'm more like that as a writer. I need to know as specific things as possible, and for me, especially because based on who this character is, their date of birth would be public knowledge, and that meant I also had to figure out when it would be, because okay, this story is taking place at a certain time of year. They're going to have their birthday at a certain day of the year. Is this happening soon? Has it just happened? Is it going to happen during the story? That sort of thing. Because it might come up, and it will be weird if I did like just a story set at a random time of year that's completely unspecified, and I never really acknowledge that kind of thing, because then the character doesn't feel real enough and the world doesn't feel real enough, because the time of year that something takes place determines how it might happen. You know, weather, when does it get dark, that sort of thing. And I really think in this level of detail, because it matters. What I'm doing here is basically an exercise in creating a sense of verisimilitude. So it took me a while to really understand, okay, why not just pick a random date? Because I'm not that kind of writer. I can't just pick a random date. I have to know the specific date that it happened. And without going into my entire process and telling you absolutely everything that goes on behind the wizard's curtain, I did eventually figure out a way of working out exactly when this character was born, right? And then after that, I was able to think, okay, great. So I know how old they are right now. And actually, they celebrated their 18th birthday a few months ago. Then after that, I was able to use it as a starting point to think, okay, so now I have that. I have a broad idea of like sort of whereabouts they are in terms of how long they've been doing what they do. And that was something I was able to then start thinking about. It's kind of like Superman, right? There are multiple different versions of Superman's origin story. There's the Man of Steel, there's Birthright, Secret Origin, there's the New 52 Grant Morrison one. I remember James Gunn recently saying that his Superman, when we first meet him, he's been Superman for about 3 years now. Other people might go for like, okay, this is year 1, like how Batman has his year 1. And then The Long Halloween is supposedly like year 2. And then after that, Dark Victory is year 3. And it's all worked out. I don't know whether it's because I have read a lot of comic books growing up, or whether or not I'm just like this as a writer anyway. I need to figure out like what year of their career they're in for this to make sense. And I thought, okay, based on what's happening in the story, because how does the protagonist meet the love interest? That's something I had to work out for a while. And up until this draft, I had it fairly figured out. This draft, though, is going to be completely different. And it's going to be a lot more realistic based on all the world building that I've done over the past few drafts. So, I now have a much clearer idea of how this all happens, and it's all because of a certain event. I've talked about this a couple of times now. My book is set in a fictional country. And a fictional country would have its own fictional holidays. Countries have national days. And this country also has a national day. And I thought, perfect. That would be an event when you could expect people to be meeting each other and for certain meetings to be made. And for that to be when our two characters first meet. Great. When is that national day? And that was also something I had to think about. I didn't just want to pick a random day at all, because I thought I need to know what the day is so that I can figure out what time of year this is. That's going to affect the weather in the place that the main character lives, and it's going to determine, like, based on the time scale of the story. I'm still not quite sure how, over what period of time the book takes place. I'm thinking it could be a year. Hopefully, if I manage to figure out everything, it can go full circle, and I can sort of end with it being the next national day, like of the following year. That could be a good way of bringing the story full circle. Readers like that kind of thing, because then it feels like the story has a natural, organic structure to it. And I thought, okay, if I can figure that out, and I can figure out this character's age based on when they were born, I know what the date of birth is. If I can figure out the national day, that is something that then I can figure out, okay, so this year's national day, based on their birthday, like how much older would they be? Okay, I am kind of rambling now, but basically, once I got that date, both for his birthday and for the national day, which both took a lot of like humming and harming, but eventually I got it. Because the thing is, this national country, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. Its history is going to involve the countries around it. And it took a while for me to figure out just where in the world this country is anyway. And once I did that, it was much easier to figure out the kind of culture they have and the naming conventions and the language they have, because it would have been influenced by the countries around them. Well, like how British history, there's bits of Germany, bits of France, bits of Norway. There's lots of stuff going on there, and this country is similar to that. And I thought, if their history is similar, like in terms of how they gained independence, who did they gain independence from, and who, and like what did that involve? So I eventually I managed to create like a broad idea of when specifically their national day would be, and now I basically have those two key dates: the main character's birthday and the country's national day. So he'd be, I think he would probably be about like 6 months out. I'd say there'd be a good half year between those two things. After that, I thought, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So do I start with this year's National Day, or do I wait till next year, which will be December 2026? I really don't think there's any chance I can get it done by this year. That's just not going to happen. Last week I made a video about the thing that Brandon Sanderson said in his writing lectures, where he's started a sort of progress bar using a spreadsheet in order to actually track his progress to 100,000 words. on his manuscript as a percentage. And I had started doing the same thing, and that has helped me because as a gamer, I like seeing that number go up. I like seeing my path to completion becoming more tangible. And now that I've started doing that, I have an idea of what kind of progress I'm making. I'm making, to be honest, I'm only doing like 1% a week, which is kind of slow. I'd like to go a bit faster than that. But it's at least something. At least now I know what my average word count per week is, which is good. So 1% a week. There's no way I'm going to finish it this year. If I'm lucky, I can finish it by like next December, which isn't all that long actually. And I've really got to get on with it if I'm going to do that. But the problem is, it takes place. The book begins next December, in December 2026. On my fictional country's National Day in December 2026. He's had a good year at doing what he does. I didn't want it to be like 6 months in. I thought, he's still figuring things out. But like a good year and a half, that's good. That's fine. That's enough. So that's December 2026. That's when the book starts. That could be a deadline. If I chose to make it a deadline, it could be. No one is expecting me to write this book other than me. I don't have a publisher. I don't have like a boss or anything. You know, I believe it was Douglas Adams who said, I love deadlines. I especially love the whooshing noise they make as they go flying by. But that's when I'd like to get it done, because I am not going to change the time frame of the book for when it's published at all. It's just way too specific that I would have to like alter it. Like if I publish it after that deadline, maybe even like a year later, I then have to like alter the entire time frame of everything. And also, a lot of the references are quite dated. That there's a lot of references to things happening in the world now, and how this fictional country is involved. So it's all quite sort of the moment. And if I spend time altering those things and restructuring them around, is that just going to result in me spending more time to publishing it? By which time all the changes I'm making, are they also going to become outdated? I don't know. So I'd like to be able to get it done by December 2026, because I'm thinking that's what all the references are for. That's the world I'm writing for. The world by the end of 2026. Hopefully it won't be that different. Maybe. There's a lot of conjecture. There's a lot of ambiguity. If I can't be accurate, I'll just be vague. It's difficult to predict these kind of things. But that's when the story begins. So that's when I'd like to be able to get it published. Published, not just finished, but published. And to be honest, it ain't gonna happen probably, because I'm going so slowly, and there's so much to this. But I'm thinking maybe the reason I'm going so slowly is because it's finally setting in stone now. Maybe what I'm writing finally is the definitive version, because I've almost finished this chapter I'm working on, and it's a really good chapter, and I don't think I'll need to change it all that much, because I think I finally got it now. I think I finally figured this out. But it's that's when I would like the book to come out. I have to get on with it. But it's not a real deadline. That's the problem. It's not a real deadline. It's just an idea that for myself and stuff. And I think trying to go quicker than I naturally can is a bad idea. I have the freedom to take it at my own pace right now. And I think trying to stress myself out by going quicker, maybe that's actually not good for me. Maybe that's actually not good for the book. Maybe I should just write at the pace that I'm writing and see what happens. I don't know. But hopefully, once this is done and someone else can read it, they can tell me whether or not they think it's all too specific in terms of time frame. But it doesn't help that it's so hot right now as well. There's
It's just a heat wave, and it's so humid and stuff, and I just don't want. Oh
well. Hopefully I'll be going less crazy next week. But like that never happens. Ugh.